Hey guys, it's Jessica from Peace Love Books, and today I'm here with a fun video I decided to do all about the top 48 romances of the year according to Goodreads. This is like a mid-year check-in that they did, and I am not surprised by a lot of these because I feel like every single year we see the same romances on every list, same authors, and some of these I feel like are accurate based off of like, if you look at how many people have read it, you're like, yeah, of course. But a lot of them are also books that the publishers have dumped a ton of money behind, and some of them I feel like aren't actually popular. And I think it's interesting because they do have this little spiel at the beginning explaining themselves. So they've sorted through the stacks to find the most popular romance novels in the first half of the year. Books are selected by tracking reader reviews, ratings, in which titles end up on Goodreads read or want to read shelves. So I think even them clicking want to read as a result of book marketing, they will be on this list even if those many people haven't read it. And also this is where I find like a little bit of a problem with, because if you're gonna say it's like the best, it's got to be good, and their stipulation, it has to have a 3.5 star or higher. I'm sorry, if I see a book with a 3.5 star rating, that's not good. That is not the best romance, okay? If something has a 4 star or higher, I'm like, wow, collectively people are loving this book. If it's 3.5, I don't know. So they also said there's a lot of cross-section of the genre that exists, like dark, sports, blah, blah, blah. And so we'll go ahead and get into this. A lot of them I'm not surprised by. A lot of them I've either read and loved or I really want to pick up. And some of them I am surprised by. And also I'm like kind of tired of seeing some authors on this list when like they have not been as popular. And I feel like just because you're popular in the past doesn't mean you need to stay on the list. So we're just gonna get to it. Oh, and I did cut my hair. Do we like it? I love it. I love chopping my hair off in the summer. Okay, so number one, not a surprise. She will be on this list every year, and I do feel like her romances are actually getting better. So Emily Henry with Funny Story, I absolutely adore this. I do think that there's a interesting sect of readers for Emily Henry because she reaches a lot of just like fiction readers and pulls a lot of those in, and that's where I see a lot of these romances, is that they do reach not only the romance readers but the fiction readers. Some of hers have leaned a little bit too fiction for me, and I just like really don't love them, but Funny Story is one of my new favorites of hers. I read Happy Place this year. It's one of my favorites, and Beach Read is one of my favorites. Those are my top 3 by her. I feel like there's different camps of Emily Henry fans, so I know some people were really disappointed by this, but I did love it. House of Flame and Shadow by Sarah J. Maas. I love this. She is going to be on every list every year no matter what. She just reached 1 million or 2 million. I think it was 1 million followers on Instagram. She is like celebrity status author at this point, and she will forever dominate every list she's on for as long as she's writing. So not a surprise there, and it'll be interesting to see if they do another romantasy category this year for the final Goodreads Choice Awards, because that appeased a lot of angry fantasy readers because she would sweep their category every year. Bride by Ali Hazelwood, no surprise this is on this list. This is actually at the top of my TBR. This one has 320,000 ratings. I will not be surprised if a majority of the Goodreads Choice Awards are these books at the end of the year. That is insane. And this one has an average of 4.05. That tells me 300,000 people read this book and on average gave it 4 stars, which is very impressive. I have not read this yet. I'm excited though because it's different than what she normally writes. She got really well known for her women in STEM romances, and this is a vampire werewolf romance, I think. I don't know if it's actually Omegaverse. I feel like people are saying that and it's not. So getting to the ones that I'm very familiar with, we have Dress for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. I read this, adored it. This one has also, this has 300,000 ratings. 4.42 average. That is absolutely insane. I've been reading Abby since her first published book, and it has been so amazing seeing her get so much more successful because I loved her first book. Her third one, Life's Too Short, I just really didn't like, and that's the only one of hers I haven't liked. I have adored everything else she's written. She is such a great romance writer, and again, similar to Emily Henry, I feel like she is also very welcoming and not intimidating to non-romance readers, even though I think Abby Jimenez is definitely much more romance heavy than Emily Henry is. Emily Henry definitely delves a lot more into like family and friendships and just just like life in general, while Abby Jimenez does that, but fully centers like heroes obsessed, which is why I love Abby Jimenez, and that makes me so happy. This is one of my favorite books of the year, so love that it has a 4.42 average. The next one is shocking because it's A Fadington Blood by Danielle Jensen, and I don't think I would call this a very successful romantasy. I could be wrong, but that's just how I've seen it around. It does have 70,000 ratings. It does have a 4.0 average. I got halfway through and I haven't picked it back up. I am not super excited about it. I feel like there have been so many more romantasy books that are better than this, so I'm surprised, but it also was a book of the month book, and I feel like the more exposure some of these books get, the more people are going to pick them up, not necessarily that they're the best written books. Though 4 average rating is good. Wild Love by Elsie Silver. It makes my heart so happy seeing Elsie on this list because she is an author starting indie that turned trad, and I love that for her. She deserves all the success. This one I gave 5 stars to. I loved it. This has a 4.13 average rating, so collectively people are loving it, which makes me happy. I wasn't the biggest fan of the last book in the Chestnut Spring series, but I've adored every other book in that series and every book I've read by her, so I think I've rated almost a majority of the books I read by her 5 stars, so she is amazing. This is one where I'm like, people don't love, oh, okay, this is interesting. So maybe it was just her last book. Carly Fortune. I feel like I am scared to try her again because I did not like her first book, and I've heard horrible things about her second book. It was still on lists, but she's one I feel like you'll always see on like romance lists and in romance, like being pushed as a romance book in bookstores. And I don't think, like, do people love her books? I don't know. So this is This Summer Will Be Different. It has 120,000 ratings and it has a 4.0 average, but I don't see a lot of people reading this book. And I know she just got so popular for the first book that she wrote, but I think not a lot of people liked her second one, and I wasn't a fan of her first one, so I haven't picked her up again. But I guess people are still enjoying her. Then we have When the Moon Hatched, which this blew up this year, and it was republished traditionally, and this one has a 4.17 rating, so this one is definitely topping the charts with the ratings, and it has over 50,000 reviews. So this is one that I honestly thought would have more like people reading it than A Fadington Blood, because I've collectively seen so many more people talk about this book, but she blew up overnight, it felt like, so I love that people are loving that book. The Paradise Problem by Christina Lauren. This is another author where I feel like they are collectively really read by casual readers, fiction readers, and romance readers, and I've honestly stopped picking up their stuff because I loved their old stuff. So fun, so like they're definitely more angsty, more spicy, and I don't know if they've returned to writing spice, but ever since The Unhoneymooners, I have not loved a single book they've written that I've stopped. I read like 3 after The Unhoneymooners and I just didn't love it, so I just haven't read their books, but they're definitely ones that are always like book of the month books, they're picked for book clubs, and they're just like the staple romance author that people love to read, but I just like fell out of love with their writing, which is really sad. So let me know if you've read any of their new ones though, and if I should check out their new ones, because I've stopped in that like little section of transitioning from being like really, really great romance authors to more mainstream and away from more romance authors, if that makes sense. Then we have King of Sloth, my queen Anna Huang. I am so happy whenever she's on this list. She has 90,000 reviews and 4.0 average rating, which is amazing. I love this series and I'm so excited for everything she's writing next. And she is one that is a staple romance author that keeps the romance, which I appreciate. Lots of spice, lots of grovel and angst in her romances. So good. Who doesn't love a billionaire either? So love that. Scarlett St. Clair, A Touch of Chaos. I honestly did not know that this series was still publishing. I feel like not a lot of people talk about it. This one does have 27,000 ratings, which like in the grand scheme of things is a lot, but doesn't seem like a lot compared to ones on this list. Like one of them had 300,000 ratings. We have 100,000 ratings. So an interesting choice for a romantasy when I feel like there's definitely more popular ones that could have been included on this list. Not in Love by Ellie Hazelwood. We're going to see her. It's not as popular as Bride. I think this came out later than Bride though. Did Bride come out earlier this year? She's pumping out books though. This one's just back to her like feminist STEM romance novels, but I've heard it's different. So it is a forbidden romance. Someone told me it was angsty, so I'm definitely excited. Oh, this one recently came out. Okay, so I guess 70,000 ratings having recently come out is actually pretty impressive, but it does have a 3.73 rating, so this one's definitely not as loved as Bride. So interesting. The Rulebook by Sarah Adams. I really enjoyed this. She's definitely someone I like to go to when I just want a kind of like fun romance, but I know I'm not gonna get like an angsty romance out of it. But this one was a second chance, and she was his agent, and he's a football player, so I really like this. And I am excited to see what she has to come out next, because I read my first one by her last year and I really enjoyed it. So she's also one that I think is just a staple, like, mainstream romance author. The next one I unfortunately just really didn't like. This one is How to End a Love Story by Yulin Kwong. It fully focused on, so it was her romance with the person who was responsible for her sister's death, and her sister though had died by suicide by jumping in front of a car, and it was the hero's car. So her family blames him for her sister's death because they've obviously not coped with her death whatsoever and have not like really delved into what happened in the tragedy. And so I just didn't love it, and I don't love things in like the TV industry. And she was an author, and her book was being made into like a movie or a show, and he was one of the writers, so they had to work together. Felt very lustful. They just didn't really acknowledge anything, and I was like, you people need to like really focus on yourselves first. So I didn't like this, and it does have a 3.74 average rating, so it has been read a lot, but not my favorite. Brynn Weaver's on here. She has blown up. That's not a surprise. I don't know if I'll read this one. I thought it was too rom-com-y for my taste. I'm not a rom-com person, and the first book was just so sweet and cute with serial killers. I mean, there's still some disturbing stuff. It's like two serial killers falling in love, and this one I think so too. I might pick it up. I do know the first book's a movie, and I was just like, I want a little bit of a darker romance in this book, so I never picked up book 2, but maybe I should. Speaking of dark romance, we have Where's Molly. I had no idea that so many people were reading this one. I know people love Haunting and Hunting Adeline. That was just like super blew up, and if people want dark romance, they really turn to that. This one already has 70,000 ratings, and it is a 4.2 average rating, so people love this. It's a spin-off. I don't know what this one's about though. Is it about that girl like that she was reading that stuff in at that house? I've only read Haunting Adeline. I never read the second one. It was fine. It was good. I did like it, so people just love H.G. Carlton. Tessa Bailey is another author I feel like we're always going to see on this list, but she's another rom-com author that is just not for me. I don't love rom-coms, and the ones that I've read by her, I just didn't love them, and they are so well loved though. So I have heard Fangirl Down is good. This one at 61,000 ratings. It does have a 3.93 average, but most people I talked to said that they really enjoyed this one, and I've actually seen a lot of people reading it, so this one I am interested in reading. But her other ones not so much, because like I said, like, I don't love the rom-com humor, and every time I read it I just don't love it, so I just need to stop forcing myself to try to read rom-coms. Lynn Painter's an author I'm interested in, though this one is Happily Never After, and I feel like her adult is not as popular as her YA, so I've never been excited to pick up her adult romances. This one also has a 3.74 rating, which is like, that's average to me, so it doesn't make me excited about the book. I don't think I've actually read any of her adult romances, or I don't even know if I've read anything by her. But I think I'd be more willing to pick up her YA because people are like obsessed with those, and I feel like I might like that better. Even though I haven't been reading a lot of YA, I feel like I would like the stories for those better. But Saddle by Lila Sage, she blew up after her first book, which I thought was okay. I wasn't super blown away by it. I just thought it was just your run-of-the-mill cowboy small town romance, so I was shocked that people were obsessed with it because it wasn't giving me like the Chestnut Springs feelings. Like, that series was just so good, and the romances were so good, and in Done and Dusted it was just like fine, and so I never picked up Switch and Saddled, but I do know a lot of people really love this one. I think I might like it more than book 1. It does have a 3.98 average, which is actually like really good, so I might do this one on audio. I've read a lot less than I thought on this list, but they're all books that I'm like, yeah, but I do get excited more for indie romances, so that's also why. Feybound by Sarah L. Arif, I did not know was a romance, but it also only has 11,000 ratings and a 3.62 average rating. So I don't know if I would want to pick this up, and I'm surprised it's on this list with that low of, I mean, like, okay, 11,000 people is a lot, but like I said, we've had like 100,000, 300,000, like in the grand scheme of things, that's not a lot to be on the best romance of the year list. So very interesting. It must be romantic-y. Ready or Not by Cara Bastone. I know she has like some really diehard fans. I had read my first one by her last year and it was fine. Definitely more on the fiction side of things, and this one I think is a surprise pregnancy. So not my cup of tea. I don't think I'll be reading this, but a lot of people love it. It has a 4.04 average rating, which is great. Catherine Center is another author that's just going to be everywhere in Book of the Month, pushed by publishers. I read one of her books and I did really like it, but it was for sure way more fiction than romance. And this one is The Rom-Commers. I don't know what it's about, but it does have a 4.2 average rating and 35,000 ratings. So people are loving this one, but she's also one I'm not like super excited to read because I'm like, I don't love romances that lend more on the fiction side than romance. So A Love Song for Ricky Wilde, for sure we'll be reading this actually this month. I have to, and this one is a 4.06 average rating. I loved her first book, 7 Days in June. I loved that, and so deserving of being on lists. I think that's one of the reasons why I picked it up, because I hadn't heard of it, and then I saw it a bunch of lists at the end of that year, so I was like, oh, I have to read this. And so I'm excited for a new one from her. Definitely very emotional romances. I love them. The Dixon Rule by Elle Kennedy, loved this one. So happy to see it has a 4.22 average rating. This one is a hockey, new adult, hate to love neighbors, but it does heavily deal with domestic violence, so definitely know that going into this one. Their heroine's in an abusive relationship that she got out of, but that ex-boyfriend's not leaving her alone, so very serious, but I love that. I'm shocked to see this one on here. We have Tangled Up in You by Christina Lauren, which is their new one, and it does annoy me. And we have another Elle Kennedy. It does bother me when they put multiple books by authors on here, because I'm just like, let's just like give more authors a chance and just put one by each person. I honestly have not heard anybody talking about this book, so I don't know if people like it or not. It does have a 4-star average rating, but only 7,000 reviews. I do know this was a more recent release, but Taming Seven by Chloe Walsh, I've heard a lot of mixed things about. I have friends who are diehard Chloe Walsh fans that were a little disappointed in this book. This one is book 5 in the Boys Atonement series, but it was her first trad published and edited book. So there is that. I loved book 1. They're so emotional. I do need to read the rest of the series, but people love this series. Novel Love Story by Ashley Poston. I have to read this. I'm obsessed with her books. They're so fun and whimsical and magical. It does have a 3.8 average rating, which I think is very interesting. I don't know if I've seen a lot of people talking about this and what their ratings are, but I can't wait to read this one. I'm just far behind on my new releases, so interesting. Girl Abroad by Elle Kennedy, another Elle Kennedy. I have not read this. She definitely has hit or miss reviews. I feel like a lot of people like to read her books just to not like them. So this does have a 3.65 average, which isn't the best, but I do think this was optioned for film, and I think it sounds fun. She like studies abroad in London and has all guy roommates, and I think there's like messy love triangles, so I might like this one. I'm for sure gonna read it. Then we have This Could Be Us by Kennedy Ryan, which this one for sure leans very heavy on the fiction side. It's definitely about our heroine really discovering things for herself and about herself, and like dating herself was a big thing in here. The hero was amazing. I loved him, but definitely not her most romantic book, but it has a 4.4-star average, 21,000 reads. I'm so happy Kennedy is on this list. I'm so happy people are reading her. I've loved her for years. I'm obsessed with her, but this was not my favorite by her, but I'm happy that it's so successful, because I do think that she has a wider audience now, because it's not strictly romance, just like a hint of romance. Then we have Kevin Kwan, who wrote Crazy Rich Asians, which I don't know how much his books lend into romance. I've never read anything by him. I did see the movie, but this one is Lies and Weddings. This one, a forbidden affair erupts dramatically amid a Hawaiian wedding. So sounds very similar to Crazy Rich Asians, where it's around a wedding, very lavish, lush lifestyle. I'm probably not going to read that though. I haven't heard anybody talking about this one. Honey, which is actually on my TBR, I think for this week. I'm reading it for a video. But this only has 5,000 ratings and a 3.68 average. So again, I don't know what this is doing on this list. I have seen some people love it, which is why I'm reading it for a video, but I don't know why this was put on this list if they're using shelves to decide on this. Then we have Bridesmaid for Hire by Megan Quinn. This is another author that I'm very picky about what I pick up from them, because she is hugely rom-com and I don't love rom-coms. There are some that I've given 5 stars that I've absolutely loved that are more like forbidden romances, or like she has this fake dating hockey one that I loved, but I don't love rom-coms, like I've said. But then we have another Megan Quinn, The Reason I Married Him, which is a romantic comedy, Marriage of Convenience. Whenever they say like laugh out loud, I'm like, oh, I probably won't like it, because because I don't laugh out loud while I'm reading. But there's 2 for Megan Quinn. Not surprising. She definitely dominates the charts. Holly Renee, The Veiled Kingdom. I am so surprised to see this on this list, but I loved this. So that's super exciting. I do think she's probably going to announce some sort of deal soon. She pushed back the release of book 2 and said she had something exciting to share with us. So I'm assuming something's happening soon with her, but love this one. My Dark Desire by LJ Shen Parker Huntington. Not surprising there either. These 2 have a really huge fan base, and this one has a 4.25 rating. I do want to read this. I haven't gotten to it yet. I do want to read this. Katie Robert does have a 16,000 ratings, so I feel like mainstream wise she's doing well still, but this one has a 3.73 rating. I honestly didn't even know that the Dark Olympic series was still publishing books, so that is interesting. We have Savor It by Tara DeWitt, which I thought was good. I did enjoy this one. It only has 9,000 ratings, but it did recently come out. I give this one 4 stars, and it has a 4-star average rating. Just a really cute small town romance. I don't think it's as good as her backlist that I've read, which I feel like she got to be a little bit more angsty and emotional with, but I did enjoy this one. Really good small town. This one I've almost bought so many different times. Say You'll Be Mine by Naina Kumar. It's a debut romance, but I haven't seen so many people reading it, but every time I look at it, I'm like, oh, this is pretty, I should buy it. But then I don't, and this one only has 6,000 ratings, and it has a 3.82. So I do appreciate them putting debut authors on this list. This is definitely one I want to keep my eye on. I just haven't read it yet. Don't Want You Like a Best Friend by Emma Albin. This one I've just seen a lot of people disappointed in. It only has 10,000 ratings. It has been out for a while. I gave it 3 stars, more like 3.5, but it was okay. I just built it up to be something amazing because it's a sapphic historical romance. I was like, this is going to be the best. It was cute. It was fine, but I do feel like the romance could have been built a little better. So Amy Leah is on this list every time. The Catch, I feel like doesn't have as many ratings as it should for when this book came out. It only has 10,000 and has a 3.69 average. I gave this one 4 stars. I thought it was really fun. I do like it. Her and Sarah Adams are 2 authors that I feel like are very similar, where they're always on these lists. They just have very low stakes romances that I just feel like are like fun and cozy to read, and this one was one of those. So I did enjoy this one. Zodiac Academy. I read the first one, and I'm not gonna read this series. I will say it's very impressive that there's 9 books in this series, and this has 20,000 ratings. That's an impressive fan base. So I didn't like the first one. I'm not gonna go through a 9 book series, but cool for them. Lauren Asher, Love Unwritten. This one just came out like a month ago, and it already has 29,000 reviews, 4.17 average. At the top of my TBR. I am shocked how many of these I actually have not read. I am more of an indie romance reader, but still, I thought I would be a little bit more caught up on this. But this one's definitely at the top of my TBR. I do need to read it. If You Hate Me by Helena Hunting. I'm actually surprised this is on here. I love Helena Hunting, but I did not see a ton of people reading this. So it does have 12,000 ratings, but it does have a 3.81 average. I think there was a cucumber scene that made people mad. This one was just very raunchy, which is like kind of going back to her Pucked roots. If that's this one. I think that was this one, but interesting. I'll have to wait and ask friends if I should read this, because I don't know if I'd love this, because raunchy is not my favorite in romances. Summer Romance by Annabelle Monaghan. This one is one I think might be more like Catherine Center, where it definitely leads more fiction. I do have this though that I'm reading for a video, so we'll see if I like it, but I've been hesitant to try out this author because I feel like she's more of a fiction author. I could be making that up in my head, but we'll see. We'll see. I'll report back. Hate Mail by Donna Marchetti. I really want to read this. It looks super cute. I haven't seen the best of reviews, but it does have 12,000 ratings. It's 3.88 average, but I feel like a lot of people I see reading it give it 3 stars, but the cover definitely caught my attention, and it's a pen pals hate to love romance, so it looks cute. Okay, we're down to the last 3, and I've only read one of these, but Late Bloomer by Maisie Eddings. I really love this one. I gave it like 4.5 stars, and this is one that I've seen a lot of people not like, but I just thought it was so cute. It's a sapphic romance where it's on a flower farm, and I just blew through this audiobook, but it does have a 3.77 average, but I really liked it, so I'm okay with it being on this list. Yes, please. The next 2 are surprising. We have Mary Kay Andrews, who wrote Summers at the Saint. I cannot think of a single person I know who's read this book, and I feel like this is definitely more of a fiction book. Is this romance? Is it? It does have 18,000 ratings, and it has a 4.17 average star rating, but I did not know this was a romance. interesting. And then The Emperor and the Endless Palace, and this one is also one where it's not even 3,000 ratings and a 3.53 average. So I don't know what about it qualified it to be on this list. It seems to be more fantasy just looking at it, so I don't know if it's more romantasy, but very interesting. I would really like to know who picks these lists for Goodreads, but that is my reaction to all of these. I'm a little underwhelmed by this. There were none, I feel like at the beginning there were, but there were none that I was like, yes, absolute favorite, one of the best ever, for sure should be on this list. Like, I feel that way for Funny Story, Just for the Summer, Wild Love, but the other ones were like good, they're good romances, but best of all time of 2024? There's a little bit of a, that's up for debate, but let me know what you think of this list, if you have any all-time favorites on here, if there's any that you're surprised by, or you're like, I don't necessarily agree that should be on this list, let me know, and that's all I have. As always, thank you so much for watching and have a good day. Bye.